Hello and welcome to the AI Governance and Data Security Show.
Hosted by Nikki Chapple and Ryan John Murphy.
Your go-to source for practical insights on securing Microsoft 365 and Gen AI. In each episode, we're joined by Microsoft experts, MVPs, and industry leaders.
If you want to understand what it really takes to secure AI,
you're in the right place.
Let's get started. Hello, welcome everyone. I'm Nikki Chapple, a Microsoft MVP and Principal Cloud Architect at Cloudway. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Ryan. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you very much, Nikki. Yes, my name is Ryan John Murphy. I'm a former Microsoft MVP, now working with Microsoft as a data security SE and also a data security champion. And as you can see, we're joined again by the Purview leadership team. Maithili, Talhah, thanks for joining us.
Good to be here.
So, last time we spoke about DSPM. We kind of give everybody an introductory level of what it is, what to expect from it. But for this session, let's understand what's behind the scenes. How is it constructed? And then later on, let's try and squeeze out of Talhah and Maithili some of the things probably that's coming down the line, and maybe some teasers.
Yeah, sounds amazing. You know, one of the things I'll say just to get started is it's been a privilege working in Purview in data security for the last 7 years now, and all the amazing amount of feedback and whatnot we're getting from customers. And initially we were very deep on these expert systems like Microsoft Information Protection and data loss prevention and insider risk management. So really, if you sort of think about the way we frame up DSPM, it is taking the best of those 3 core products that we have that help you to understand and manage your risk to your data at rest, understand and manage your risk to your data in transit, and last certainly not least, help you understand and manage your user risk. The fact that we have those depth expertise in those, really for us, DSPM was, how do we bring that together to give you a unified lens and view, actionable view into how to manage your data security posture? So from that perspective, I think it's been quite the privilege to take the depth that we have and sort of bring that up to give you that unified view into what are we able to discover and where some of your discovery gaps are, your protection gaps, your investigation gaps, and let you dig into those. And, one of the things I'll call out up front is a big part of our focus in DSPM has always been this drive towards an activation engine. Customers always told us that they want to be able to use these core objectives to drive activation of capabilities. Like, customers are talking less and less about, I have these point solutions that do things. There's more about, I need to understand my data state. I need to protect against exfiltration. I need to manage AI risks. Those objectives, we sort of help you with DSPM capabilities to understand those objectives, understand the risks behind those objectives, and then activate the remediations. One of the things we're going deeper into now is this posture management plane, day-to-day posture management plane, which is not just showing you what's going on across your risk profile, but also how can we identify the right risks in the right part of your data state so you can manage things correctly. Like, one of the big questions we get from our customers right now is, my data state is massive. I've got, we got customers from, they might have 10 SharePoint sites or 5,000 SharePoint sites, all the way up to million plus SharePoint sites in their environment. And they're like, I can't manage all of that on day one. Where should I look first? So this idea of really focusing in and shining the light on the right areas and looking at the right types of risks. Like, do you have a lot of classification risks where you need help to better classify your stuff? Or do you have a lot of exposure risks, things like oversharing? Or you have a lot of rot issues like redundant, obsolete, trivial information? So that's the thing you're going to see us focus in more and more. And really the bedrock of all of this is, for us, classification. Like, the better you understand your data, the better things become kind of across the board, whether it's detection, whether it's protection. So Maithili, I don't know if you want to dig into that a little bit, some of the things we're doing on the classification side and what's sort of top of mind for you.
Yeah, I think Talhah kind of really hit a really good point around, what's unique about DSPM is that it can correlate across those multiple risk signals to help you understand, a posture around prioritized data sets, like take 1 million SharePoint sites. How do you kind of say these are the top ones where you have most activity going on with Copilot, and perhaps risk around your data not being classified correctly, or permissions open to a lot of users, or a site that's an HR site but getting access by people outside HR. If you think about how do you sort through all of that risk and present that to the user, and that's kind of what the SPM, and I think I'm very excited about what's coming up with the posture agent, where it's like this engine that can help you do that and take the heavy lifting out of humans to go and correlate those risks. So we're really excited as Talhah is building sort of this DSPM and the posture agents. And then one of the things that we're working very actively within Purview is really thinking about that classification risk that feeds into it, because our customers tell us all the time that the data is not accurately classified, right? Like something that looks like an SSN is not an SSN. That's a very simple example. But like, what about something that's an IP or an R&D document in your organization? It's not even possible to kind of go and detect it in a way that is high fidelity and accuracy. So Purview's always been the engine for data classification and detecting all of this information. But one of the things that we realize is the expectations of customers and their amount of what they need in terms of their accuracy in detecting some of that data is really kind of enriches their posture. So that's kind of the place where we think about AI being very, very applicable. And we're looking at kind of really innovation in kind of raising the bar around both accuracy and coverage. And so there's, of course, some exciting stuff we're working on. Ryan, one of the things that I'm always very curious about is, what do you hear from customers? And Nikki, you as well. Do they think about this problem as something that's important for them? We certainly hear it.
I would definitely think so. Given the big customers I deal with, they have no idea what their data landscape is. And if they can, they will bring that to the fold to protect that for AI and agents from a prevent and protection layer, right? So they'll go and classify that data, even if it's at the file level or at the library level. They'll put some type of classification on those documentations, which really resonate to them. So if they picked up their priorities, they can understand that. But going back to what Talhah was saying before, that cold, dark data that they don't know about, which is potentially going to have somewhat of a ramification, whether it be oversharing, over visibility, or just, core access to the most confidential information, which they've completely forgotten about. If that posture agent can go and highlight and bring that into the light to give them the aspect of, this resonates with this type of documentation or this type of topic or category of documentation, like you were saying before in R&D, that in itself will accelerate, without question, will accelerate customers' ability to adopt whatever it is they want to adopt from an AI agent's perspective, or even just adopt an acceleration on labeling. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, a lot of customers, they're beginning to use the sensitivity labeling, but a lot of that's new active content or, content that's being edited. There's so much data. The people are still migrating data into Microsoft 365 from, other cloud applications or still from on-premises servers. And I think the best will in the world, they start off and saying, actually, we're going to tidy up that data before we migrate it in. Then they can't find business owners. And that's the problem. It's not being able to find any owners for the data. And nobody wants to press that big red button, delete. So they migrate everything in. So you've got this huge, vast list, millions and millions of files. A lot of the cases, they've been merged into uber large SharePoint sites. So you've got no kind of governance, no accountability from the business side of things. You can't even really do a risk assessment. If it's unknown data, unknown owners, that unknown, we can't actually put any prioritization. So having something like the DSPM controls that helps kind of highlight this data could be higher risk. This is where we should be focusing our priority on. Otherwise, I think people just get stuck in that analysis paralysis. I've got thousands of SharePoint sites, millions of pods. Where do I start? It's getting that visibility. And I think the particularly new DSPM is just brilliant. The way you can go through and start looking at that data and supporting customers on their journey.
Love that comment, Nikki. If I can just build on that a little bit, I think we certainly appreciate the fact that there's different resolutions at which you can provide confidence about understanding data, delineating data and categorizing data in different buckets and things like that. There's different ways of doing that, right? There's what we would roughly call coarse-grained, and then you can get to more fine-grained type of stuff. Right? That's certainly very top mindfulness. Like people need to be able to understand where things are before they go and start digging in and whatnot. I want to go back to one really critical point, which is this classification stuff. I think both Ryan, Nikki, both of you guys kind of touched on this hard. It really is fundamental and foundational. And one of the things that often gets overlooked in this space is experience also matters, because a lot of the classification capabilities have to be farmed out, need your entire, in security, we always talk about this idea, it's everybody's job. Nowhere is that more hyper-focused than when it comes to data classification and data security. You expect everybody to understand how to classify my data and be able to label on it. And, what Maithili and team have built around just this native first-class experience around whether you're in Teams, whether you're in OneNote, whether you're in Word, Excel, PowerPoint, like you just get it there. It's native. So I do want to hammer this point that, having that kind of experience is critical. And now I'm going to be very careful because I get too excited about some of the work that's happening in that team right now and try to just guard myself. But just to give you an idea, if you have that as the base, like the experience is already native, you don't have to worry about taking data out to classify. You can do it in line. Not only do it in line in your tenant, but in line in the same experience with what AI can provide. So just have that sort of thought. Plus, now with what AI is able to do, remember another problem in the classification space is you might classify something as looking like A, but somebody else might come in and say, no, it's actually B, right? So there's this classification verification problem. It's always been a two-pronged problem. And you can think of AI as acting on both. It can actually do the classification and then it can actually itself. Like, people talk about this all the time, right? Now, this idea that AI can actually, and you've seen this out there, there's coding agents that actually are a system of agents looking at different, they work together in unison to produce an outcome for you, right? They're task agents is what you call them. They're good at specific tasks. So the way you can also frame up some of the problems in the classification space is that there's different tasks involved. There's evaluation, there's classification, there's validation kind of thing, right? And yeah, I can help with a lot of those things. So
Interesting.
some really, really exciting things coming down the pipeline that and once you do that, imagine all the investments you've already had, right? Like your users already know how to use, they work on SharePoint, they work on Office, they work on Teams, all that stuff. They've already got DLP, they've already got IRM, they've already got auto labeling policies, whatnot. Just all of that stuff gets better, just like that.
I love that. I can't imagine it being anything but a success for customers to leverage this, whatever it is, whenever it comes type of scenario, Talhah and Maithili. But just when you were talking there, like my mind's going 1,000 miles an hour of what you could achieve with something like, if you want to put it into perspective, like contextual classification type of systems that you have. Well, I'm going off on one here. I'll let you go.
That's the right phrase, right? That's the right phrase.
So question, and maybe we can, dig into it a little bit just for our audience here in terms of, let's take a concrete example. And because Nikki, you brought this up, there's millions of data files. There's a lot of data we're talking about with our customers, especially in Microsoft. So Talhah, I know that today the triage agent as an example, and let's take that because it's GA. How does it work when you think about so many DLP alerts, IRM alerts, all these millions of logs And when we see this agent kind of going and actually prioritizing something to say, here's what you should look at. And let me be a little bit like also skeptical here a little bit. A lot of agents can do that. Like they can go and say, this is what you should look at based on high priority, just based on a signal that is your policy risk, could be your user risk, could be your detections. But what makes it work for a tenant in Microsoft? What would it mean to my tenant and my data? Because that's where these agents differ, right? Everybody can build a generic agent, a triage agent. It's not a hard problem today to go across logs and do that. What are we doing as Microsoft to really differentiate in that space?
I love it. I love it. And I think the key thing that you hit on there is the idea that you can have thousands or tens of thousands of logs or more when you look at each of these alerts kind of across the board, right? So really, when you look at, there's sort of two things here that are worth kind of considering. When you have a human that has to go through the drudgery of alert triage, what they're doing effectively is they're trying to look at these alerts and produce a narrative out of it. They're literally trying to produce a story out of it. Like, and the story is what happened. We do the job we can around in DLP and IRM to produce these alerts and give you as much of what happened as possible. And that might pinpoint to specific logs and things like that, but you have to read it and you have to make a story out of it. Ryan came in on this day, he came in after hours, he downloaded this file, which is very unusual for somebody in Ryan's role to download, and then you renamed it and then you uploaded it to cloud. That looks suspicious. So you have to write that down. What we found is there's ways to produce this, and this is something we just announced recently at RSA, is we can actually use these LLMs to produce what we call these AI-driven narratives for you. Because when you have that narrative, then you can actually produce the verdict that this looks risky. So that's one big piece. But the thing that Maithili hit on that's sort of the next level beyond that is, how do I make it contextual? How do I make it personal for my tenant? This is actually the key thing, which is personalization. So I'll give you an example, right? Maithili and I were talking, I got turf in the backyard. I'm sick and tired of all the rain and getting mud puddles everywhere. So I've been using Copilot to research things like, hey, what kind of turf and whatnot. And the thing that's really cool is when I asked questions about it, it was able to personalize the answer for me to say, you live in the Pacific Northwest, right? That personalization matters, right? If somebody else is looking at it on the East Coast, they'll get a different answer, right? Personalization is what makes it unique. So that's the piece. There's personalization built in right now with these intents that you can do on the DLP triage agent, right? So you can come in and personalize and say, I want to look for this, or this is more important to me. And we're working on another version of that to kind of expand its coverage based on things we can learn from the context of the tenant itself. And that's where, again, classification will actually play a big role to understand your data state, what kind of data you have, what kind of classifiers you have, and even what classifiers are good versus what classifiers are not performing as well in your specific tenant. Getting that level of personalization is really what sets it apart and makes it unique to you. So this is things we'll talk about a bit more as well. Personalization, like I said, it's out there. We've announced that as well, but there's a couple of things we're adding to it to really supercharge all this stuff.
And it sounds like, Talhah, Maithili, that we're building something that can pick up on multiple sequences, signals, to provide back to an individual an accurate assessment, which will give them, number one, eradicates alert fatigue, number one, because you're getting something that's meaningful to you, the alert, the incident, the DLP policy, even down to the rule and the actions within the rule, right? To say, this is what's happened. This is why it's important for you to take it forward. And if that's dropped in my inbox or in my Teams channel or someone alerts me to that, I know it's a must attend to policy. It's a must attend to alert, I should say, right? Because it's, I want to say the word flavored, but I don't think that's the right word, into what it is that I need to see, because all of the hard work's been done by the triage agent to assess this is not a false positive. You know, this is something that you want to get your eyes on now.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
And I think if I were to underline the key here for any good DSPM sort of experience or any kind of agentic experience is the personalization piece. And if you can imagine today we have a capability out there called trainable classifiers. And we kind of have these trainable classifiers for you to use. But what makes it really unique is you can actually take something that Microsoft has built and then use your data and make it better and customized and personalized for your R&D data or IP data. And that's kind of the work that we are very excited to take forward with LLMs. So you can imagine now, earlier, the biggest challenge was when customers used to tell us we have to provide large samples of data, and we don't know where these samples are. But one of the things that LLMs make easy now is you can give us a few seed samples, or maybe you might just tell us the intent. This is what my R&D data looks like. Just type in natural language intent. We can generate synthetic data based on your intent and now create something for you without a lot of effort. And imagine behind the scenes, as the data is getting classified based on what we built, you go and say, this doesn't look right. It's not the human who needs to verify it doesn't look like. We could have a human-like agent who's sitting and looking at that sample set and saying, I get it. This doesn't look right. I'm going to improve your system. Wherever it's sort of really removing the pieces which were extremely human intensive with LLMs and sort of building something very quickly, which is personalized for you. Now you can imagine when you bring up all of that data from on-prem, huge swaths of data around your dark data, that job now can focus on actually classifying versus actually creating those classifiers. So you're now spending faster time looking and sorting through the data versus actually spending time building that classifier. And that's really the theme of what you're going to see us talk about more as we show you some demos, perhaps next time around.
Definitely a big yes to demos. Yeah, love the demo on this side, don't we, Nikki? But when you were talking there, Maithili, I'm thinking this makes it so much easier for customers to go from prompt to precision, right? And it's that precision piece around that data that you're just prompting into whatever it may be in the background, the agent or whatever the case may be, to build that precision LLM based on, if you want to continue the categorization, if that classic trainable classifier, just from simply putting in natural language, right? Man, that's amazing.
Yeah, and also the ability that you can keep iterating. I think that's the important thing. So you can start with something simple and iterate over time and build more complex scenarios by just adding on top of it. So over time, it's going to get more and more accurate the more it learns about the behaviors and the ways of people working and the risks, because they're going to change over time for different organizations as well. So I think that is really good, that it becomes organic rather than this is static. And this was a DLP policy that was written 10 years ago and is still running today.
Sure. And I think that's a good point. And I think as well, this is a great place to wrap up and look forward to some demos next time. And I think Talhah and Maithili always brings real good insights into this, and we get those little hints and tips for potentially things coming down the line. So again, really, really appreciate you both joining us. Any closing comments from you both?
Yeah, we'll go deeper into this AI topic, which is really at the core and center of the innovation, whether it's securing AI, using AI to drive data security in a very, very sort of modernized and AI first way. So we're really excited to show you parts of what the product is available today with the existing demos and then kind of where we are headed. We'll do more of that with the triage posture agents that are already available, but go behind the scenes and then look at some of the new stuff that's coming out.
Well, really appreciate you both joining us again. You're always welcome on here, and we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on the AI Governance and Data Security Show.
Subscribe for more real-world insights from Microsoft experts and the wider community.
As we continue to explore what it really takes to secure AI and govern data.
See you in the next episode.